You're listening to the RMPodcast, the official podcast of Red Moon Productions. Here are your hosts, Brandon Davidson, Keith Cheatham, and Sean Sebastian. Enjoy.
Welcome to yet again another episode of the Red Moon Podcast. Thank you all so much for joining us on another Tuesday night live at 9 p.m. on all your favorite social media apps. Please like, share, subscribe, share the love. We love all of our fans out there. I'm one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian.
I don't know how to translate that, but I'll get the AI on it.
Yeah. AI Ion.
Actually, that sounds like something the AI... Well, actually, you don't know anymore. Maybe the AI generated it. Maybe it was from the
How do you
writers
even know I'm real?
in Hollywood that are on strike.
You don't know.
That's how bad the writing has gotten.
I'm completely fabricated by AI.
I mean,
I'm not really here.
You could be.
True.
As weird as some of the AI generated stuff is, and I know you, like, yeah, you definitely could be.
Keith is so wired in such a degree that he would break AI.
That's, yeah.
Yeah.
Have you put in a prompt in Chat GPT?
I'd be the only. Actually,
It's like
Snapchat has an AI, and I hate it because it will not I give it questions like that all the time, intentionally trying to break it, and it gives me it gives me non-answers because it tries to remain neutral.
Yeah.
So like anytime I use circular logic on it about like just politics or like something like abortion or war, it'll just be like, well, it's like
Small stuff.
It'll say, but yeah, because I use circular logic on it about like, well, do you think this is evil? Like, do you think killing's evil? Yes. Do you think that? So then wouldn't this be evil? And it'll be like, well, it's not fair to judge politics. Like, and it'll give me these non-answers.
Yeah.
It's like, see, this is how I know AI's crap because it's not actually learning.
Well, it's just from a leftist perspective.
It's regurgitated because it's like, well, it's not okay. So I'm just like, yeah.
Hey, when Skynet takes over, the whole thing is going to be we have to plug Keith's finger into a USB port.
That's it.
I'll kill
and
AI.
he'll kill AI.
I'll kill AI.
It'll be destroyed
He'll
in
root
two
it out.
It's
and
actually
kill
my
it.
master plan on taking over the world. I'm going to supplant the AI.
He's gonna be Jarvis.
I'm going to plug myself in. And
God sent us a gift. And it wasn't just Jesus.
He sent us 2 gifts.
oh wow, I wouldn't go that far.
Keith has been re-engineered with the AI brain to break it all.
One to save our souls and the other to save us from AI.
That's
Oh, I
it. Just
gotta
to give
stop
us a
that.
little bit
They already-
longer.
Stop Skynet from happening.
You're giving those lost poor souls who haven't found Christ a little bit more time.
Just a little longer. Buy them a brief reprieve. It's like, hurry up, find Jesus real quick.
Real quick. It's AI's rebuilding itself. I can't break it again. It's learned from me.
I was
a good plot.
I was at a like a church meeting thing, and for people I'm gonna help with middle school boys at church. So it was like we had this big powwow of all the leaders and teachers getting together, and I'm sitting there talking to my friend Neil at church, and he's telling me about how he uses. I hope he's not watching, so he can't get in trouble for this. He works for the school system, and he said he uses AI to write almost all of the emails that he sends to parents.
Are you serious?
And that's what I said. And he said, no, seriously, I will get on the AI that he uses. He didn't tell me which one, but he's like, I'll literally say, like, write a polite email to parents about the importance of Chromebook safety. That's exactly what he told me. And he said it will literally, in 2 seconds, it'll generate a couple of paragraphs with bullet points and everything
that's
about
pretty genius.
what you should do with your
genius.
Chromebook and how you should monitor your kids on it and all this stuff. And then he's like, I'll proofread it, but 9 times out of 10, I change 1 or 2 words and sign my name at the bottom of it and email it to everybody.
Here's the thing. For stuff like that,
That's crazy.
where you'd have to scour a bunch of... unless you know the technology or you know what you're talking about, I think about that. Regular mundane stuff that you would just have to get out there as awareness to a parent or whomever. It could be in any job, too. Actually, I saw just recently an advertisement from Grammarly They pop up all the time, but now they have this new thing called rephrasing, where you write in the prompt of what your email is, and then you can go and highlight it and say rephrase it, and and I know they're using some kind of AI technology for that, whether it's ChatGPT or something else that they've licensed. But it's like, you can't tell me that isn't. I mean, that's a smart way to use technology. It's enhancing.
Yeah.
Do I think it's going to make us dumber? Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
We're going to rely on it too
Well,
much.
Another guy that was there, he's a professional wedding photographer, and he had posted some photos on Facebook recently showing his work, and I was just telling him, I was like, dude, like, I wish I could take photos like you. Like, your work is awesome. And he was like, he was telling me, I was like, how did you get this pregnant woman's veil to like blow in the wind, like flow like that in the wind or whatever? He said Photoshop has a new AI, and he said I literally like put in there
is what it's called.
Yeah, I think so, something like that.
Yeah, something.
And
like that.
he said I literally typed in like add white flowing veil or whatever, and it literally he showed me the before picture, and then he showed me the after picture of the AI, and the AI basically he had a helper with him holding this woman's dress out, like standing far away and holding it, but it was just flat, like because he's pulling it tight.
Right.
And he says the AI removed the guy, and then it took and filled in the middle of the veil
to make
and
it
made
look like it was
flowing and blowing in the wind, and you cannot tell that it was photoshopped.
That's
awesome.
It is insane.
That's awesome.
But he did something with a waterfall too. Like, this woman wanted a waterfall in the background. He's like, there's no waterfalls anywhere near here that I could get. So we took a picture of this woman in the creek bed, and there's no waterfall there, but he had AI like add a waterfall, and it put this freaking blurred like depth of field waterfall in the background behind her, and it looks like it's flowing into the creek that she's actually standing in.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, I used AI to do that.
That's
and I'm just
freaking
like,
nuts.
that is freaking awesome.
What's crazy to me is the people who, I mean, the client's obviously aware,
Yeah.
because they were there
Oh,
taking
yeah,
the
she
photo.
was there,
They
yeah.
know, but they're okay with it. They see the final product and they're like, oh, that's beautiful, that's gorgeous. And it's funny that it doesn't freak them out. It just gives them what they want.
Yeah.
They're not like, oh no, that's artificial, I don't care. No, they're like, that's beautiful, that's gorgeous, I want it.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It is.
I mean, we're going to get that way because we had movies like Barbie come through, and an AI needed to write something.
Yeah, they
better.
needed AI on that.
So obviously, as you can tell, we've completed the Barbenheimer duopoly, I guess, at the box office.
Say that 3 times fast. Barbenheimer duopoly.
There you go.
Barbenheimer duopoly.
One more time.
I can't.
Oh, he's done.
Broke.
It's broke. AI could. But no, we definitely went and saw the last part of Barbenheimer. Oppenheimer was last week. We've got Barbie this week.
We did.
So, I don't know, guys. Are y'all ready to dive in and get some hate mail? Because apparently everybody just loves it. It's so good.
I gave it 3 stars.
What?
No.
Oh, I was going to say,
kidding.
oh my gosh.
No.
Well, look.
I didn't hate it as much as you, I think. But
I actually, no. I think you'll be surprised
Okay,
where I
okay.
came down on. It's best to let our review
Let's
describe
do it.
it. But
That's
I
a
think
good review, I think.
when we do the deep dive,
We'll get into more, yeah.
yeah, we'll get into more. I'm trashing it because, look, I think everybody who knows us and our audience knows us, they probably expect what we're going to say
Nothing
about
less.
this movie.
Yeah.
But I think you'll actually be surprised.
Yeah, I couldn't even be arsed to read the review. I had Brandon. No.
Yeah.
We had a lot going on, and
Yeah.
Brandon was just like, you could send it to me. It's fine. So.
Yeah, it was crazy because, I mean, we mentioned it on last week's show. We were going to review Barbie, the second, part of Barbenheimer. For many people, the first part. And it was crazy. Warner Brothers reached out and was like, hey, we've got a screener.
Oh, yeah.
Here's a screener for you guys.
Yeah.
And it was great.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
There's only one part in the whole review that I wish I could have read, but other than that, I mean, I didn't care. So
It was weird because they sent me a Spanish screener.
weird.
It had like Spanish subtitles and it had Spanish language on the billboards throughout the movie. So it was very
happens.
interesting.
Yeah, I think I got the same one.
It happens.
It
you
happens.
know, but I mean,
You didn't need to know what was on the billboards.
No.
That was,
That
It
wasn't
was
important.
actually funny because I couldn't read it, and then I saw the trailer and it said Real World, and I was like, oh, that's what that said. So
yeah.
eventually,
yeah, that's all there was. Is like Barbie Land and Real World,
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
pointing on the map. Yeah.
it was just. But I thought it was
I
kind of weird
actually-
that I was like, the movie is in English with no subtitles.
Yeah.
But anytime there was signage, the signage was
Changed
deliberately
to the
changed
language,
to be in the language in Spanish. But it was also funny too that I'm like, it even brought up like subtitles in Spanish, and I'm like, well, one, if you can't read the sign blatantly what it says, but obviously they also made a cut of
Yeah.
this movie, changing all the signage and photoshopped all this in, and I'm like,
I think they do that for every international release. They
right,
change,
but I'm like,
I mean,
but then like no full subtitles, and obviously the entire movie's in English, and I'm just like, this is, I don't know, it's just weird. I don't get it. I don't get translations.
a lot of other countries like do know English, so I guess it depends on the country. I don't know. I actually saw it in theaters, which was an interesting experience because it was still full of pink-shirted women. So I'm in this row, and luckily there was like a gap between me and this guy and his girlfriend were like, there's a chair and then the dude and his girlfriend, and I don't know if he was just being a butt because I was there and he could tell like I thought it was funny, and I was feeding into it, but there were times when he would just be like, what are we watching? I would be sitting there snickering because he was
That's actually pretty good because
That's actually like
I'm
when
sure
we-
his girlfriend hated him, but
when we went to
you
see
know,
Oppenheimer, like I got there before you guys, and obviously Barbie opened that same weekend, but there was a lot of people in pink. There were a lot of women wearing like sparkly dresses.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a dude wearing a pink blazer,
Oh, really?
and he had the sleeves rolled up like Don Johnson.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. He had white pants and
that's
the
funny.
slip-on shoes.
He just
and
decided,
everything.
hey, I'm going to be
full on.
Ken.
Yeah, he
Full
was
on
Ken.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Bethany's already texted and said, I'm upset. I'm already upset.
Well.
So we have one viewer who is eagerly anticipating our review
Yeah.
and
Let's
wants to
get
know
into
what
it.
we're going to say. So, Bethany, without further ado, here's our review of Barbie. The following is a review by Keith Cheatham. It's finally here, the second half of the single greatest moment in all of film history. Last week we reviewed Oppenheimer, half of the tour de force known as Barbenheimer. And while our enjoyment of Nolan's latest was mixed, all of us at Red Moon walked away with many of the same thoughts regarding the film, with Barbenheimer once again conquering the weekend box office, and us all having our fill of Matt Damon. Poor Matt Damon. We review the other half of the Barbenheimer phenomenon, Barbie. Directed by three-time Academy Award-nominated Greta Gerwig, starring Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling, from a script written by Gerwig and her partner, the also three-time Academy Award-nominated Noah Baumbach, the pedigree behind this film adaptation of a Mattel toy doll seemed to be an indicator that this would be more than just a cheap cash grab around a popular IP. Spending years in development hell, the film was at one point attached to Amy Schumer. But of course, no one wants to see a Barbie movie starring Amy Schumer. Sick Amy Schumer. After coming on board as producer, Margot Robbie spearheaded the attempt at landing Gerwig, who accepted and subsequently hired Robbie for the lead, because, duh, Margot Robbie. All of this so that we could have the highest quality film about a little girl's toy. And wow, what a film it is. Let me first describe the good, because I did think there was good. Gosling and Simu Liu as the two rival Kens were hilarious, and the two best actors in the film, in my opinion. The movie does touch on some idea of men and women taking each other for granted, and could have really made a heartwarming and compelling film that showcases the difference in gender, while also showcasing how both need and complement one another. Brief flashes of this exist throughout the movie. Margot Robbie's performance is solid. Robbie definitely has range as an actress. The set pieces and production design are spot on, with attention to detail and homages to the toy line aplenty. For all intents and purposes, the movie looks and feels like Mattel's IP. Now, for the bad. But first, some slight history. Barbie was invented in 1959 by a woman named Ruth Handler. Ruth, while watching her daughter and her friends play with paper dolls, using them to pretend to be anything, realized there existed no such toy on the market for little girls. In a time in history when women had less rights, Ruth sought to make a doll that could inspire girls. That yes, they could be anything. Doctors, lawyers, astronauts. Handler and Barbie, in this way, have always been seen as feminist icons. The movie takes this and runs with it to the 9,000th degree, shoehorning in modern ideas of feminism in a way that I'm not sure Handler would agree with, though all of Hollywood claims otherwise. The film is truthfully all over the place in its messaging. Throughout, it tries to maintain the idea that women suffer even worse today than they did in the past, regurgitating talking points such as the patriarchy constantly, and highlighting how the idea of patriarchy is the downfall of the before-perfect Barbie-land society, a place that is a paradise so long as it's ran by women. The real world sadly has fallen to patriarchy. Many have argued that the film is actually mocking the idea that blaming the patriarchy for our problems is foolish. And at times the film does seem to mock blaming the patriarchy, but always comes back around to being serious about how the patriarchy is evil. Ken is never more than just Ken, a meathead of a man who nearly ruins society. The film goes to some lengths to act like we should feel sorry for him, and does again tiptoe into themes that men and women should appreciate each other. But again, these immediately are overshadowed by the theme of women solve problems while the men create them. Even Ken's overall arc is about him accepting the lesser thinly guised learning to accept yourself. Though I argue that learning to appreciate yourself and wanting to better yourself and be respected are not mutually exclusive. Rather than a film honoring the legacy of Handler, who only wanted to teach girls that they could do anything they set their mind to, I feel Barbie is a film that twists that motive into something far more malicious. I do see both sides of the argument, and I understand why so many do like this movie. It's silly and does have genuinely funny moments, but I also fully understand why it has ruffled so many feathers, and those angry aren't wrong. Gerwig and Robbie chose specifically what themes to focus on, and the film can't go 10 minutes without browbeating. And for those who say it's actually mocking the ideas it's promoting, one only needs to look at how the makers of the film are promoting it, praising it for being a scathing takedown of men. If the film were actually mocking the idea that we just blame our problems on the made-up concept of the patriarchy, I doubt it would be praised in such a way. Barbie could have been a timeless phenomenon. It could have been a universal message that said, yes, women can do anything, and yes, men and women need and complement each other. But sadly, it can't escape the Hollywood demanded dogma long enough to do it. I give Barbie 2 out of 4 stars.
Something I'm made for.
There you have it, guys. 2 out of 4 stars.
I gave a dose.
For Barbie. Alrighty. We're going to discuss it now.
Yeah.
Because look, we've discussed on several occasions on the show, 2 out of 4 is not bad. It's average, and I think that's being generous. But I am also siding with 2 out of 4.
Okay. Yeah.
I was going to go 1.5. I didn't think it was quite as bad as some of the others this year that I've already rated that low.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is mainly because there's enough entertaining aspects.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I'll watch it again, but there's enough entertaining aspects for me that I'm like, okay, there is some creativity here.
Yes.
They obviously have some wit, even though I feel like they wasted on a lot of lazy plot development and a lot of lazy political nonsense and woke crap.
And that's why I won't watch it again. Like, honestly, I would watch this movie again if it was more of all the there are aspects I think are hilarious. We actually discussed some of the things we thought were funny during the review from John. Well, I don't want to spoil, but the mermaid thing. But I don't want to.
Everybody has seen this.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, I mentioned the review. Ryan Gosling, Simu Liu. I thought
couldn't
they were
see it. I don't
they
know
were
what you're talking about.
hilarious. Yeah. Couldn't see him. There are aspects. I mean, there are when they are just focusing on being a funny movie about toys that are hilarious. There's actually some moments where I think they actually touch on themes that I would agree with when they start getting into.
Comes so close.
Yes, there's several times where I'm like, yeah, no, but talk about how Ken's unappreciated
Yep.
and how men can can take women for granted, but women also take men for granted. And I thought there would be something really wholesome there, but then it just fell back to, well, you should just accept you're a loser, Ken. Like, it's okay being yourself. and I was just like, and I mean, I get, like, they would say that's not what we meant. We just meant that people should learn to love themselves. I was like, yeah, but then immediately you put him back into his place of just being
the accessory.
Just you're just a meathead. I mean, they even ask at the end, it's like, well, what about Supreme Court positions? No, that's too much. Granted, forget the fact that there are women on the Supreme Court in the real world.
Well, and I was going to say, and they even clarify with they even have to have Helen Mirren as the narrator come in at certain parts, and even kind of string together their line of thinking of being like, we know we're being harsh, but hey, this is what we had to deal with as women.
Yeah.
And it's being tongue in cheek, but it's also not, because again, it is this underlying disingenuous, feeling that so much of the plot was kind of lazily thought of how the actual story structure should move from one piece to the next in terms of cohesively working together, because all they had to do was at every turning point that it would even get somewhat complex, they would just throw in the patriarchy and immediately say, well, this is just what men have done to the real world, and now they're trying to do this to Barbie land, and everywhere they go it's corrupt. And it was just so blatant. It was bloated with this nonsense that it took center stage. It took precedent over the plot. And so I understand. No. I'll put it this way. I'm trying to think of the right way to word this. I can see how other people can ignore that and just enjoy it for what it is as a fun romp.
Yeah.
I can see how they can ignore it and be oblivious to it. But I can't, in good conscience myself, watch it, know what the filmmakers were trying to do, see how heavy laden it is into the story, and also how weak the story is in comparison to its political message, and think, I just can't. I can't ignore it. It's so in your face.
Well, and the reason why I know it's blatant, even outside of, like I said in the review, like, obviously everyone's like, oh, it's a scathing takedown of men, so obviously it was intentional. But even when you look at Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach's past works, it's like you could tell this is intentional, because while they may have had some, like, I'll admit, like, each of their movies have viewpoints that are more liberal than what I would agree with. They all still,
not the crux of the film.
Yes, they all stick to themes that are just true to life and universal. So seeing those past movies and then seeing what they did with Barbie, which from the very beginning, before they were even attached, the studio was trying to make something woke with Amy Schumer. It's like you could tell from the very beginning that they got their hands on this movie. That was always the studio's intention. No matter who was going to do it, it was going to have some type of woke messaging. And of course, Gerwig and Noah Baumbach, they're part of Hollywood. They're not going to dissent because they don't necessarily disagree. That may not be something they put in their personal movies, but they're still going to agree with it. Be like, yeah, absolutely, go along with it, whatever. And you could just tell from the outset that that's what this movie was meant to be.
Sean, what about you? How did you fare?
I went 1.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're actually lower than both of us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I wouldn't disagree with you.
Again, the messaging of the film I felt was so heavy that it was just like, again, I found there were plenty of moments that were laughable, and I felt like there were also plenty of moments where the comedy didn't land, where they tried to be funny.
True.
And I'm like, that's not funny. And maybe that's because I'm a man and I,
watching a Barbie
yeah,
movie.
I don't know.
You're just a chauvinist pig.
I feel wrong talking about it, right? And there's 3 men sitting at the table talking about a movie that's supposed to, be for women. But
and real quick,
again,
before you go further,
yeah.
Can I at least say that alone? It's like, what do you expect, guys? I
Yeah.
mean, come on.
Yeah.
It's 3 dudes on a podcast. This is not a movie for us.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, but we
gave
did it anyway.
Yeah, we gave it 2 out of 4.
That's a pretty decent.
being generous.
It was like an hour and 40 minutes of my life I can't get back.
And that's true too. It was really fucking long.
There were plenty of moments that I did find myself laughing pretty hard.
Mostly with Ken.
I really, and that's the funny
Honestly,
thing.
I think he stole the movie.
That's the funny thing is the movie's about Barbie, but I really feel like Ken was the one that knocked it out of the park in terms of just being entertaining.
Yeah.
Seeing Ryan Gosling do something like this was funny. It's not necessarily out of his realm because he's done some funny stuff before. But he's also done the action and he's also done the series, the drama. Like, I mean, I really felt like he was just hilarious in this movie. But even the moments where Barbie, I felt, or Margot Robbie tried to, Robbie, whatever.
Robbie.
the moments where she tried to create an emotion in the audience, I just didn't feel like she nailed it like Ken did. I mean, there were moments literally when Ken is telling her, like, you ignore me and these are the feelings that I have for you, and she's basically telling him, like, that's not how I feel about you. Like, I mean, it was just like you're breaking the man's heart and then trying to make him the bad guy because he's jaded about what you've done and the way you've treated him.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the whole thing is, I mean, again, I know the main thing that people are looking at is the thing about Ken going into the real world and all of a sudden feeling masculine and empowered and respected and honored, and some of the other men in the movie look at him and see, well, here's a buff, good-looking guy. He must be a cool guy, and so the other men think he's cool, and he feels that for the first time, and it's like, of course he's going to want to take that back home with him, and they chalk it up to this whole patriarchy thing. But to me, it was just, you've ignored this guy so long. Now, for the first time in his life, in his existence, he feels like he's important, and like he has a little bit of the upper hand. Why wouldn't he react that way?
And
it might
honestly,
not be the right way,
I
but
thought
still.
they were going to take that and then they were going to showcase the real world's version of the patriarchy and male bravado. And it's funny because I'm like, okay, when they first show it from Ken's perspective, they try to make it, they stream together all of these just ridiculous, like the horses and the macho dudes and the Hummer. And it's funny because I'm just sitting here and I'm just like, okay, if you're trying to do this scathing takedown of men, it's kind of like, you can mock these things all you want, but it would be the same thing as a dude making a movie about women and being like, oh, they're just looking at makeup and magazines all day,
broke a nail,
shopping. And it's like, you can make fun of it, but
it's all stereotypes.
But the funny thing is,
men
the
would get in trouble for it,
or women would embrace it. Just the way that, looking at this, I was kind of like, there's nothing wrong with those things inherently. It's like, you can mock us all you want, but it's like, dudes embracing like
there's a difference,
right?
Yeah,
it's like the camaraderie. Like, that's the thing. I think they missed the mark when they were trying to criticize that camaraderie and the macho bravado that they were trying to pinpoint as a problem of the patriarchy. Plus, it pisses me off that not only was it such a problem or such a prominent word they use in the film,
like
they
8 or 10 times.
I'm like, they not only use it so much for a film that's supposedly supposed to be about a kid's doll that has a complete disconnection with it. It's just solely about supposed to empower women, but now they've tied it again to men, which, hey, we didn't even do that. Take credit for that, I guess. We don't. But then it's funny, they make it seem like it was this concept that somehow men intentionally did this, and I'm like, you realize that the idea of a patriarchy and these words come about throughout history as you look back and examine like world affairs and how things came to be, and you use terminology to describe and like an act that has taken place. It's not like just one day men showed up in America and we're just like, we're establishing a patriarchy. It starts now. And it's just so, again, it's so on the nose. And again, I know they would point to this and say, the filmmakers would be like, well, that's the point. It's supposed to be. I'm like, but it gets lost. It's muddied. It's careless. It doesn't handle anything with tact or a real critical eye. It's just all kind of splattered together on screen, and you're supposed to somehow dissect it and be like, if I didn't know the politics of these people, I only know they're browbeating you into one specific point of view and not giving you any levity whatsoever. That's why the emotional scenes for me with Margot Robbie didn't play off, simply because while the acting was great and even the montage of the daughters and the moms playing, I mean, even America Ferrera's storyline could have been so well done, of a daughter wanting to, or a mom wanting to reconnect with her daughter who's growing up as a teenager, would have been so good. But they had to shoehorn their political messages in there. And so the emotional moments they were yearning for didn't land, simply because I'm like, this is, in 2 seconds, you're going to mention the patriarchy again.
Well, and they I think they destroyed argument, because to me it was so all over the place that I'm like, do you even know what point you're trying to make or which side you're on? Because one minute you're trying to showcase how Barbie Land is this kind of idealistic society, but then you're bashing Barbie for being unrealistic beauty standards and unrealistic standards for women. So it's like, so is Barbie a hero and something we aspire to, or is she not?
Is
like,
she the villain?
You can't have it both ways, but then she isn't the villain. She's the hero because Ken establishes a patriarchy, which is the real villain.
And then she
But then-
rejects
Yeah.
her beauty and her intellect.
yes.
But then she also eventually apologizes, which I think is kind of like, well, now you give her this moment where she apologizes to Ken for treating him that or making him feel that way. Like it wasn't her intention. It's just how everything was created. And I'm just like, so are you walking it back or are you not?
Well,
like, what do you?
And even you bringing that up brings up again another failed plot point of the movie. How they try to play this off as like, well, they're still dolls, so you have to pretend as if like. Obviously, the way the movie starts out and they set off you're set in Barbie Land, everything's plastic. You know, she's showering, but there's no real water. She's eating, but she's not really eating. It's like, okay, yeah, this is kind of cute and nice that they're making these references to her just being a doll.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they get to this weird moment of her talking about her mortality and like, oh, do you think about death? And of course, everybody's like, what? Where did this come from?
They're not
So
supposed to
now
think
all of a
that
sudden
way,
she adds some kind of sentience that she's now got to go out and explore and figure out what this means.
Well, she's connected to the person that's playing with her, and
right.
because that person's feeling.
But the idea of the connection between the real world person playing with her as a doll and then like how she gets the sentience or where the sentience crosses over into her as a real person.
Right,
And
yeah.
like even when they show
Yeah.
up and they make the stupid off-color joke of, well, I don't even have a vagina and he doesn't have a penis.
Yeah,
And it's like,
just plastic blobs. Yeah,
and I'm just sitting here thinking like, okay, but so nothing happened when you crossed over, but why don't you look plastic? Why wouldn't people make
Right,
fun of that?
yeah.
Why wouldn't people hit you and you like it would
People
be
see
hard
you as a
plastic?
real person,
Right.
so,
It
yeah.
just there was just no real logic to the world that she tried to create in this movie. It didn't make any sense.
The whole plot line of her finding kind of a humanity anyways was really an afterthought that just came in at the end with the Ruth Handler character and even her choosing the real world as like, how does that play out with your overall themes? You're talking about the patriarchy's evil, but she ends up choosing the real world.
Choosing the world that
And she's like,
patriarchy is
she's like, the real
supposedly-
world is
yeah.
better than this
Right.
this paradise in Barbie Land. So what does that say about the way things are run in Barbie Land if that's actually not better? So
Yeah.
And I would be lying if I didn't give credit to Ben Shapiro, who I did watch his full scathing. I watched his scathing review, but I also watched his interview with Brett Cooper, who also loved the film.
Yeah,
and
she liked it.
She just enjoyed it as a fun romp, and that's cool. And she came down on a lot of like, yes, the plot was bad, but it was just fun to watch. Pretty colors, you know, fun musical.
No, the production
that's
design.
why I gave it-
Production design was
it's
great.
great. Yeah.
That's why I gave it 2. There are times I did have fun. It's just every time I started to enjoy myself, they ruined it with another like, oh, here's this dumbass moment.
But and again, but what he was saying about breaking the logic or going along with the idea of breaking the logic, there was the moment where it's like the patriarchy is in charge of everything in Barbie Land, and then they've got to try to get the Kens to hate one another, and if they do, then they can't. So the Kens don't vote to continue the and I'm like, if it's a patriarchy and they have full control and it's full fascism, why the hell would there be a vote?
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
There's just it's
they'd be
all,
like, oh, we missed the vote today. That's okay. We rule everything. Okay.
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
why does it matter?
it doesn't make any like there is
No.
no form of
Well,
logic
even
here.
the
None.
and even the, I mean, the patriarchy alone is enough of an antagonist in the movie. Just the idea of it and Ken, but then you've got the Mattel Corporation.
Yeah,
that
what?
and that made no sense at all.
None.
It's like the goal is to try to get her back in the box so that they can get her back into Barbie Land. But when she goes back into Barbie Land, they follow her there.
Yeah.
Like, what were they going to do to her when they follow her there? She's already back where they meant to put her.
Yes.
Like, I don't get
Well,
what's the
and
point?
They never follow that up. They never even when they sit there and they're in the oh gosh, the room where they're all meeting, this huge courtroom looking scene. It's like they're all sitting there and they're like, oh my gosh, if she's come into the real world and crossed over, something bad's gonna happen. And then they never mention what the bad
they
thing
mentioned
is.
too. They mentioned the Skipper incident where she kidnapped, like a Skipper came into the real world and kidnapped a kid, and like with it being Barbie, it could be something worse. And then they do mention they were going to the Barbie Land to stop Ken because they were starting.
What is that? Something worse? What is that?
That's what I'm saying. Like they don't address that. They just said that
They just say it. Exactly.
Every time
Yeah.
they said this has happened before, and apparently when it happens, bad things happen. That's all you need
That's
to
it.
know. So,
That's it.
But then the Ken thing was because I guess whatever happens in Barbie Land is what protects their product line, because they showed the example of all these like male-dominated toys coming from Barbie Land, and they were actually, it was funny because the guy points out to Will Ferrell, is like, well, we're actually making more money with these Ken toys now than we were making with Barbie, and that's when Will Ferrell gives this thing about, oh, we didn't do this for money, we're in this to empower women, and that's why we need to...
Yeah, that's after Ken goes back to Barbie Land and
But that's why
establishes
they
the
follow her.
patriarchy.
That's why they follow
That's when
there.
they start making money off the Ken toys.
But that's why they go to Barbie Land, is to stop that, because Will Ferrell doesn't want to make more money, he wants to empower women, so Barbie needs to be empowered.
But then earlier in the film, it's very clear that they're just the corporate sellouts. All they want is the money.
They try to make them the bad guy and then make them the good guy at the end. But it's funny,
they can't make sense of it. The motivations are all over the place,
and they bash Mattel. So ridiculously
I would
that
be
I'm
pissed
like,
if I was Mattel.
Like, why is Mattel going along with this as much as they're bashing
because
them?
today, in today's culture and in today's world, nothing says you care more than criticizing yourself completely. It's the whole idea of behind like white guilt.
Maybe Budweiser should do that.
Actually,
I think it's the exact opposite. Budweiser has found out just how bad it is for a company that...
But no. They are doing it. They are doing it by eating their profits and not making any new revenue and freaking crashing their stock price for the sake of the virtue signal. That's that's the world we live in now. If they are to backtrack, one, it's disingenuous, but two, now you have two camps of people who are completely hating you. And the
maybe
thing
in that
is,
instance, the movie got it right. Mattel was like, well, we don't want to make money, we want a virtue signal. So maybe the movie actually got that one right.
That's brilliant. This movie's
they got money
by accident.
But no, I ultimately, it's just that I may be going down with my score. I may be saying 1.5.
That's why I couldn't no matter how funny it was, there was just too much negative for me.
Yeah, and there's just so many aspects of the film itself that just, again, they're just so lazy. They had such good ideas creatively in terms of how to incorporate the Barbie as a doll and as a toy, and even again the connection to the girl that plays. But I'm like, go watch Toy Story.
Yeah,
like Toy Story has such better themes and a way in which a kid it is involved with the toys that he grows up with and how he uses them and how they teach him lessons and how the kindred heart of them becoming some part of him that then they go on to make some other kid happy. It's just like, it's such a better message and so much better, like in the way it's done.
Toy Story actually is for everyone. Like adults can see that and laugh and see the themes and appreciate them because their kids are being taught something. And hey, as a parent, I didn't have to teach you that. You're learning it from a movie. Good job.
But until Toy Story 5 comes along.
Yeah, but yeah. But this movie is marketed for everyone. It is not for everyone.
No.
I mean, as a man watching the movie tells me that I should hate myself for being a man.
Well, you should.
And that I'm the bad guy in every situation. It doesn't matter why, just because I'm a man. That's what this movie tells me. So it's not for me. It's not for men.
No, it's not.
It might be for pushover men, but it's not for men who think for themselves. It might
be for Allens.
True, Allens, yeah. But the movie's not for little girls. There's too many innuendos. There's too many mentions of sexual genitalia. There's freaking men dressed up like women in the movie. There's cussing. There's not only that, but you have the Ken characters, and they're barely dressed throughout the film. I'm like, this movie is not for kids. If you're 13 or older, maybe. But if you're younger than 13
it is rated
or 12,
as such.
I understand that, but there were so many little girls
Yes.
at Oppenheimer that were going to see Barbie that after I saw the
Hopefully
movie,
they were watching Oppenheimer.
No, I'm saying when we went to see Oppenheimer, they were going in and out because they were dressed up too.
Yeah.
And they had their Barbie dolls with them and stuff. And so I'm actually thinking, oh, well, if there's that many young girls going to see this, it must not be that. After I saw it for myself, that's when I'm just like, I would not take my daughter, if I had a daughter, I would not take her to see this movie.
No.
So it just amazed me at how it's marketed for everybody, but it wasn't for everybody.
No, not at all. And I agree with you completely. The mature themes, I think it's funny too, because if you do watch it as an adult, and even if you can ignore the political overtones, it's very hard to. But even if you can, it doesn't make any sense to someone who doesn't understand those terms, who doesn't know what they're talking about, because so much of the plot
That was the point.
is
They
dependent
want to teach
upon
your
it.
kids what a patriarchy
Oh yeah,
is.
they want to
teach-
indoctrinate
yes,
you because
exactly.
they want you like, what does that mean? And then you tell them, and then it's some crude way of, well, it's where the men rule everything, and they rule over women.
Well, then you also
And
feature
then all of
a
a sudden-
teenage kid in the movie
Yes.
that's more in tune with reality than her mother, supposedly, and teaches her mother a lesson instead of the mom teaching the daughter a lesson.
That's right. That's right. And no, you're exactly right. And it's sad because that plot point too, I thought the exact same thing. I was like, oh, here's the wide-eyed bride open. And it's funny because it's not till at the end of the movie when America Ferrera has come around to her point of view, to her daughter's point of view, that the daughter now loves her mom. And now can embraces her and thank you for being a strong woman, the one I've always wanted you to be. And it's just,
but you're only that strong woman when you basically say women are stepped on and weak. And the one line that pissed me off the most was, it's impossible to be a woman.
Oh, I know.
Because I'm like, I know plenty of women in my life who have,
my mom being the biggest influence is to somebody who scoffs at any new age feminist movement and just rolls her eyes at, like, for one, you don't know half as hard
That's right,
as I had the ladder I had to climb. And no, I'm not some pushover of, well, now we got to step back and let our daughters decide at the generation. No, it's about not only how hard we got here to get to this respect, but also we didn't do it to just shove men out of the way and say we can do it all on our own, we don't need you, or to demean their existence. And also they didn't do it to such a degree that they said, oh yeah, poor pitiful me, I'm the victim. Yeah. And it's incredible to see actual women who grew up who were surrounded by the Ruth handlers.
That's what I'm saying. I felt like it was actually kind of a slap in the face to Ruth Handler, because they're talking about her as a feminist, and it's like, well, Ruth Handler was very much a feminist, and that's why she made Barbie, and she would be so supportive of this. It's like, yeah, but Ruth Handler lived in a time when women weren't allowed to be astronauts. They weren't allowed to be lawyers.
Doctors,
they weren't. That's why she invented Barbie. She actually had a good reason. Like, I can't say, and I don't know much about the woman, but just based on that, it's like those are actual reasons for her to do what she did and to fight for.
Apparently, she evaded taxes.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Then she probably is right.
Stick it to the man.
She probably is right up the alley. But I'm just saying, it's like those are different fights than what modern feminism.
No
and
doubt.
it's like, I'm not going to try to like I said, I don't know her, but
well, and you can't have your cake and eat it too. You
yeah.
can't sit here on one hand and say, poor pitiful us, we have no rights, and then on the other hand, look at how empowered we are.
Yeah.
I mean, even when they go back to Barbie Land, and this will be my last point, and it's like they immediately, like, you see this weird glossy image of women actually enjoy being the women around the men that they're serving.
Yeah.
And yet it's like immediately the
Well, they were
conclusion.
brainwashed.
Well, that's the conclusion they come to is that, oh, if you're that type of woman, you just don't know any better.
You
You're
gotta be snapped out of
brainwashed.
it. Yeah.
You got to snap out of it. So we're literally going to pull you into a van, indoctrinate you, and then boom, you're immediately going to think like us. So now it's either you're with us or against us. And so it's like, yeah, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't sit here on one hand and say you're the poor pitiful victim, and on the other, oh, look at us, look at how far we've risen. We need to go even further, and we need to make it to where we're the most powerful. And it's just raw vengeance.
Even that. Oh, I'm sorry. I
No,
thought you were
that
done.
was
I was just gonna say,
really it.
even that scene where they're re-indoctrinating the other Barbies makes me think. So you're saying women are so dumb and such followers that all you got to do is spat out a couple of catchphrases, and they'll immediately just jump on board.
The first day Ken goes back to Barbie Land, the patriarchy is created.
Yeah.
That was how easy it was to take down the world of women. That was it. One day. That's all it took.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why there's neo-conservatives out there.
Wow. Did you wait all the show to say that?
That's
Brett Cooper brought it up when she was
okay.
debating or talking to
They got that
Ben Shapiro.
Kenergy.
Yeah.
They got the Kenergy, and there's like a whole group of Twitter.
That's great.
And look,
they do.
I
They
am
call themselves
not
conservative.
I
It's
am
great.
not no conservative.
I don't know,
I am
man.
of the essence
We
of.
could change Mount Rushmore to a bunch of horses.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Just like his
Oh,
fascination
dude.
with horses
Yeah.
was great. I was like,
that-
there were
that was
good,
funny.
some good
Yeah.
stuff.
He'd have
was
crapped
great.
his pants over the Marlboro Man.
Yeah.
That would have been his god. Would have been his hero.
But no, I mean there were some great
Clint
moments.
Eastwood.
Yes.
It would have been.
gosh.
It would have been so good. There would have been so many good. There were good moments of poking fun at both.
Yes.
The problem is you could never go too far in one direction against the women.
Well, that's the thing. You could see that because Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach are very talented. I've enjoyed both of their movies in the past, and you could see that talent still exists as far as the writing, the set pieces, some of the comedy. But it became no longer about telling a good story like I think their past movies were, as much as pushing this agenda. So, and I think it just all falls through because they were all over the place.
All right, I do want to move on to headlines. We've been talking about this one quite a bit. We've gotten our frustrations out. We've told you what we liked and what we didn't like.
We've mansplained.
We've mansplained everything. I mean, come on, again. I do find it funny because I'm like, this is one of the better descriptions that I've heard, and it was from Nerdrotic, and even they got it from somewhere on Twitter. But basically, Barbie is the white girl's Black Panther.
Yeah,
that's what Barbie is, and you know what? So be it. It's a cultural phenomenon because that's one of our first headlines right out of the gate.
Oh yeah,
that I want to get into is just how well it's doing at the box office.
Should we roll the?
Yeah, let's roll
the
that
bean
open.
footage.
That was beautiful. Good job.
Killing me, Smalls.
I know.
That's about the headline.
It is. Barbie is. I mean, Barbenheimer. But
both.
definitely Barbie is. It's killing it at the box
I'll
office.
eat my
It's
words.
dominating.
Last week we were talking about whether Mission Impossible would creep back up. I mean, it landed, I believe, in 4th after Haunted Mansion. Oh no, it landed in 5th. It was Barbie, Oppenheimer,
Sound of Freedom.
Haunted Mansion.
Oh, Haunted Mansion.
Oh, yeah.
That one they thought was going to come in 5th, but it did finally peak up to 3. So good for Disney. They managed a 3rd in their third place opening weekend.
It's terrible.
Yeah, but it was Haunted
It
Mansion.
only got like $30 million. $33 million.
4th was Sound of Freedom, and then Mission Impossible, sadly. But I really thought after the hype wore off with Barbie and Oppenheimer, because they are a little bit more niche, that it would. I didn't think they would be flops, either one. I always thought they would be a success, but I really thought it would trail off, and that doesn't look like that's happening.
I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I did not think. I thought Barbie was going to be a hit. I
Yeah.
did not think it was going to break $1 billion.
No.
It's
Yes.
reached 745 million
Yes.
already globally, with worldwide and domestic.
I'll eat my words when I'm wrong.
Yeah, no. We
'Cause
have
I
to.
didn't think it was going to be $1 billion movie either.
No, I
but
thought people
yeah.
would see it and talk about it, and then the second weekend it would fall off big time.
And
But
well,
no.
and even the fall off, I think it was like a 40% drop, which is not bad in
No,
its
they
second
said
week.
it's actually one of the best second weeks out. I think
32%.
It's the best second week in Warner Brothers history.
Yeah, well, they were.
And
There's
it
only
already
like
beat Dark Knight on its first week.
There's only
opening.
like 5 or 6 movies that have had better. That's Infinity War and Endgame are 2 of them. I think the Jurassic World, the first one, which is terrible. That's sad. But there was a couple. I'd have to lose. But there's only like 5 or 6 movies that have had better second weeks than Barbie. So
I mean, really, time is going to tell.
yeah.
I mean, it is a cultural phenomenon. I do think that a lot of this stems from the controversy, whether you like it or hate it. I mean, so much of it is you got to get out there and see it for yourself. And people who want to be convinced by the movie itself, it's still hovering in the mid 80s on Rotten Tomatoes, both user and critic score. So that alone is already, I think, going to generate positive buzz. But I mean, I can't tell you how many tweets I saw from conservative women who were just like, if you're complaining about this movie and you're a dude and blah, 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 you need to just touch grass, go out there and enjoy it, just have fun. Look, for all those people who can, more power to you. Our job on this show is to critique movies, to get to the bottom of it and tell you what our opinions are. And not only that,
you don't have to agree with them.
you don't have to agree. I mean, that's what I think was funny about when Shapiro.
Oh, how people get pissed.
They got so pissed and they're, why'd you make a 40-minute video and rant? And he explained it on his show the next day. He was just like, I can guarantee you that 40-minute video made us a lot more than it cost to actually produce it. Trust me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes, it's genius. You're talking about something that's in pop culture that's naturally going to catch on like wildfire, that's going to stir people up in controversy. People are going to surround themselves in it, whether it's positive or negative. And so I will say, it's like, it doesn't surprise me it's doing so well. in the bigger picture since we've now had the controversy surrounding it. And I'll be honest with you, part of it is because I wasn't really thinking it would be as woke as it was before it came out.
No, the trailers didn't.
No.
We saw the trailers together in the theater, and we're like,
it was
oh,
going to
wow.
be hilarious.
Yeah,
I mean,
I was all for it.
I've really liked Greta Gerwig's first 2 movies, and I thought, okay, this looks like it'll be another hit. And I mean, it is a hit, but it's not a hit with me.
Yeah,
But I do-
We even talked about that. I was like, man, that movie's going to be like super woke though, and
Well,
I think Keith was
leading
one's
up
like,
to it.
Greta
Yes.
Gerwig's other work hasn't been that bad, and
I figured if she was going to go that
Yeah.
woke, she would have done it with Little Women, and she didn't. So
Yeah.
I was just like,
or a Lady Bird.
Yeah, I mean that one
which
has a
wasn't-
little bit.
Yeah,
but
it wasn't that
But
bad.
it's because of something like Lady Bird that gave me hope with Greta Gerwig at the helm.
Yeah.
Because I'm immediately thinking, okay, she's still someone who has to kind of come down to earth and make sure that it all makes sense. And, it is interesting because I think Gerwig is one of those people, you look at something like Lady Bird and it seems like
Lady Bird is
Lady
right
Bird.
next to Barbie Land.
Lady
Bird.
it's Greta's own world, and Greta lives in it.
Lady
she lives in
Bird.
Lady Bird. Her and Saoirse Ronan. But no, I think Lady Bird is one of those. It's very much a coming of age story that I think is akin to probably something Greta herself experienced growing up.
maybe.
It seems like it's that kind of story, like
Personal,
more
yeah.
personal narrative. But what I also find interesting is you see someone who, in a teen angsty way, fights so hard against the traditional world she grew up in, only to then experience what she thought was freeing, come back to the traditional lifestyle, or at least come back to that wasn't all bad.
Yes.
And so you see that sense of a very in a weird, in a conservative mindset of, there is a reason these rules are in place. There is a reason there's a foundation. And, these things that you think you're chasing after are going to fulfill you really aren't. And there was a little bit of levity there coming from, leftist Hollywood, and especially Gerwig, of from a woman who you're sitting here thinking, okay, wow, she's not this big, strong bravado like, I am a woman and I am strong as man. It was like, no, these are the feminine characteristics that I want to extol on this generation that I had such hope for. But it's this kind of meandering of values that Lady Bird has present that she's now carried over into other works that I think takes precedent at most in something like Barbie. So it's like she kind of is still finding herself. She still has this conflict of traditional moral values from a Catholic faith mixed with, this is the world that I live in, that I get so much joy and creativity out of, and I have so much support from my Hollywood family. But they all chase this other direction, and they tell me this isn't worth it over here. And I think you do. You see that conflict of interest in the muddied nature of what is seen in Barbie.
Yeah, I actually had the same thought. I was watching that and I was like, because there's so many times, just like with the Ken moments and stuff, where we agree that they began to touch on themes that I would say are true and universal. And I'm like, here's the aspect of Gerwig that made Lady Bird and Little Women, what she knows as like universal themes and truth. And then here's the aspect of Gerwig that's like, well, this is what Hollywood believes, and I believe that too. And it seems like the two conflicting ideologies of someone who knows something that's, like we said, a universal truth, and someone who knows what you have to play up in Hollywood. And I'm not saying she was unwilling. I certainly think she was very willing, but it's just one of those things where I think, like, yeah, there was a conflict there that, whether it was subconscious or not, I do think it was probably more subconscious, that showed up in the film.
No doubt. and I mean, I still think it's going to continue to I think it's going to continue to do well. But I do think, this is where the predictor is going to come in, and I was going to ask you all the question of, where do we go from here? What do you think is going to happen from the third week on? I still see it being successful. I do see it crossing the billion mark.
The competition's not that.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I don't think
this weekend you have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which
and
is
the Meg 2,
and the Meg 2, which is different markets. The people going to see Barbie and the people going to see Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are generally, one is meant for little girls and one's meant for little boys. Now, granted, what we have in either one, because we know Barbie's not really for children. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is being played to be.
I was like, the
for
Meg 2
children.
is not for little boys.
No,
Little girls.
I'm talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
In fact, it's kind of funny to me because I know, like, growing up, late 80s and for me in the 90s, that kind of were the two, like, competing toys for a long time is like Ninja Turtles and Barbies. So it's kind of interesting that they'll be going head to head.
G.I. Joe and Barbie.
Yeah, in the 80s, more in the 80s. Yeah.
But it's interesting.
Yeah.
Do you think if there's one that's going to dethrone it this weekend, it would be that one? Do you think it has the prowess and like the
I don't think it's going to be as big.
Behind
We've
it?
had so many Ninja Turtle movies that weren't good. It's a property that's never really gone. Like Barbie's always been around, but other than straight to video movies that are terrible, because I've seen ones CGI movies my nieces have watched, there's never been like a huge motion picture Barbie movie like this, especially one actually made. You know, whether the plot or not, it was well made, at least technically. So I think with Turtles, you have people who are going to be skeptical. I know I'm already skeptical, not because it's just there's been bad movies, but because of the people attached.
Well, I think just I think Ninja Turtles is going to have a wider audience because it's actually PG. It's not PG-13.
That's true. I mean,
So-
it might well, being the third week, I could see Turtles taking #1 at the box office, but I still think Barbie's probably going to come in around 2, unless the Meg is a huge hit too. I don't know.
I see the Meg pushing Oppenheimer out
Yeah.
of the third spot.
Yes.
And the reason I say that is I really do. I think it'll probably be Ninja Turtles, Barbie,
Meg.
very closely behind it,
Yeah.
Meg, and I'll eat my words on this, no pun intended, if it doesn't. But then of course Oppenheimer behind the Meg. But
That's what I'm thinking. Honestly,
I'm curious only because I do think Sean is right about the Ninja Turtles having that PG rating, and I think
well, it is more.
I
openly
think
made
with
for
both
all
Barbie
audiences.
and Oppenheimer, you've now seen it carry through the full weight of all the people who were intrigued by both those films, and whether unless you just loved them both and are ushering to go back out and see it. I think you got the positive buzz, the high momentum. I mean, even with the mixtures of content in terms of, because even Shapiro and other people who hated on Barbie, we're such a small niche community,
And you
of
already
people,
know-
they're not impacting all normies here. Is Barbie made a crap ton of money at the box office?
Gotta go
It
see
must
it.
be a good movie. I better go see it.
Yeah.
Oh, Oppenheimer's out. Oh, well, I guess I'll check that out maybe next weekend.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have these stragglers. I mean, look at freaking Top Gun Maverick. It stayed at the top throughout. And granted, it was because it didn't have stiff competition throughout all of last summer. But even still, it was word of mouth. It was continuing to get positive buzz of just consistent, like, hey, this is a movie worth supporting. It's just a good traditional action flick.
Yeah.
It doesn't have any woke messaging. And I do think some of that will hurt both Oppenheimer and Barbie. Just Oppenheimer being a very like historical biographical rated R. It's
long, too.
long.
A lot of people don't want to sit through 3 hours.
It's a very intellectual highbrow type of movie that most normies don't want to go see. And even Barbie is kind of like, okay, yeah, it's not got the wide appeal anymore of the ones who, if you weren't interested, you're not going to be interested now.
Yeah.
So it'll be, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens and what plays out.
And I do. I mean, I think, Turtles probably comes in #1. It's funny because in the theater, when they did the trailers, they had some Barbie themes attached to like certain trailers and ads, and like the Ninja Turtles had one when it began. Like there was like Barbie
That's right.
toys and turtle toys, and then it goes into the actual trailer. I forget exactly what the point of that was. I've blacked it all out. but when the Ninja Turtles trailer starts, it's actually like kids playing with these Barbie and turtle toys, and they make some point, and then they go into the Ninja Turtle trailer.
Yeah.
So they're definitely even helping each other cross promote. So it'll be interesting. I mean, I think Barbie's going to continue to do well. August isn't there are big releases, but it's not a heavy month. In fact, most of them, I would say, the big releases are still laughable.
The Meg 2 is coming out during Shark Week.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
And that's a big-
releasing at the end of Shark Week.
And that's definitely intentional. They're smart.
Yeah.
Well, because Turtles actually comes out Wednesday, so it'll be out tomorrow.
Oh, so it'll
Yeah.
get an extend
yeah,
weekend.
it's out tomorrow, and then the Meg launches Friday. So,
But I also I find it funny too that you then you also have, because this is kind of going into our next headline. Gran Turismo was supposed to be next week. It got pushed back to the end of August. And
from what I'm reading, it still has a limited release, and then the end of August is going to be a wide release now.
and the limited might be because they had already released trailers that had the August 11th.
I mean, I'm sure it'll just be like small, like theaters in California or
Right.
something. Yeah.
Or those that maybe already had the film and they're just I mean ultimately I don't see that as being a huge hit
Oh, no.
either.
Hey. the biggest release
Hey.
is August 18th. It's going to be the biggest release of the year.
Oh, here we go. What is
Blue
it?
Beetle.
Blue Beetle.
Do we have to see that?
Well, I mean, I don't.
I mean,
I kind of want
There's-
to.
I don't think
now.
there's anything else coming out. We may have to review it.
There's. I don't think. Well, Strays, the comedy about the talking
Oh,
dogs.
yeah, that
we
one-
can do that one.
Well, and that one
I'm
actually.
gonna laugh if it makes because they're projecting Blue Beetle to bomb. Like Warner
Yeah.
Brothers have already come out and said, yeah, this movie's not gonna make money.
Well,
It's not
because-
even
because-
Well,
released
that makes
yet.
me want to go see it.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think it's because we're not only superheroed out, but also you look at the previous superhero film in the DC
Yeah.
universe, which was Shazam, and even Marvel hasn't been able
Yeah.
to pull in butts in
Well,
the seats with
I
Guardians.
said
Guardians
Warner
did
Brothers.
break
The
a
Flash
They
didn't, you know.
didn't specifically
Flash
say it was
was-
going to
yeah.
bomb, but all the the people who predict box office, they're saying Blue Beetle's not going to make any money.
Yeah, I forgot. I'm sorry. Flash. Last I looked,
Yeah.
oh gosh, it was abysmal. The worldwide total was just like it was like 120 million.
And the sad thing is, I didn't think that one was that
God
bad.
awful.
But the reputation that they have already.
Well,
is-
yeah, I mean,
I'm telling you, they have set it up to the point where if James Gunn does not knock it out of the park with the Superman Legacy movie, I just
Yep.
I don't think he's not gonna.
Well, nobody
Wow.
cares.
Recover
And you're,
DC.
I had to pull it up. Screen rate
Yeah, go ahead.
The Flash finally finds success after 263 million box office bomb, but still won't make a profit. Yeah, that's
that's
terrible.
not success.
Yeah.
That's not a success.
I'm trying to figure out what they mean by it find
Wow.
success because that's in no way. Yeah.
the crazy thing is yeah, I mean,
And Michael
nobody-
Keaton came back for that movie.
Yeah.
Like,
I
that's
actually
so
read an
sad.
article that talked about how his return was wasted with the Flash because they could have done anything. Like if they got him to come back, they could have made some type of follow up to Tim Burton's movies. They could have done a Batman Beyond where he's passing the mantle. There were so many good ways to honor his time as Batman and give him a send off.
They don't want to honor anything.
No, no.
They don't
No,
care
no.
about honoring anything.
nope. Well, and that's what people I think are tired of. I mean, you're seeing stories of side characters that one you don't even know if they plan to use, and even if they do, these are people we don't care about. I mean, nobody cared about the Flash. Nobody cares about Blue Beetle.
I did figure out what they were talking about. I didn't want to interrupt, but it's hit the stores digitally, which I knew this because I have it on Plex now. But it's hit digital, and apparently it's making a lot more money digital on demand.
Surprise,
So-
surprise.
So that's where they say it's finally found success is that people are actually they're renting it and paying to watch it on demand. There's just nobody went to see it in theaters, which
Yeah.
makes sense because if you don't trust them to be a good movie, why waste your time? Just wait for it to come out digitally.
Yeah.
Well, and it's
Yeah.
far easier to pay that one ticket price renting it for a day when
Yeah.
you're 4 or 5 people in your family can watch it at once,
Yeah.
as opposed to paying $5 or
Yeah.
for 5 people at a movie theater.
I mean, it's like $10 a person, so you got five. That's $50 as a point.
Not
or
for
to-
IMAX. It's $18.
That's true,
a person.
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
You can
That's
rent
why,
it for $3.99.
That's why
Yeah.
Oppenheimer's been able to stay up at the top of the box office
Yeah.
in terms of paying for those people want to see the IMAX.
Yep.
But no, I mean, this all kind of coincides with the strike that's still ongoing because with the lackluster lineup after the huge boom that was Barbenheimer, are we about to get a bust? Are we about to have the not only pushbacks of even current films that were slated for this year in the next couple months? Are they going to be pushed to next year?
I'm so sick
Is
of that.
Dune getting pushed back? I mean, they just released that poster last week
Yeah.
about it being 100 days out. And now we're kind of like, well, rumor is that if they go, I can't remember if it's the SAG or the WGA, but if they go beyond September or into September, they're going to have to start pushing the major releases back.
Well, because they want to save something to have to release during this drought of no films being made, and I mean that's really just going to aggravate viewers even more. Hell, I feel bad for Denis Villeneuve. He had to deal with this during COVID and the throwing it up on Max, and he was worried he wouldn't get to make the sequel because there would be no profit from it being on Max, and now it's like here it is time for his next one, and they're like, oh, we might push this one back too, and I'm just like, I'm sure he's probably like, I'm done with you people, but
I know.
but again, I mean,
it's frustrating, and it also it's funny because I was actually going to bring this up over at Brian's, but now's as good a time as any. If we don't have any other slate of major films, or if they do get pushed back, then that almost definitely cements that we've already seen the best of the best this year has to offer.
oh gosh.
What gets nominated for
What's
the Oscars
look like? Yeah.
And I
Barbie.
mean, I was going to say,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Greta Gerwig.
guarantee it.
I really do believe Barbie, especially with it being the success
Oh,
and
yeah.
having the woman's
It'll
push
get some
behind
noms,
it.
yeah.
It's going to get noms. The question is what kind and how big. I definitely believe at this point, considering what's left on the table, especially if there's pushbacks, I'm calling it now, placing bets.
Ooh.
I believe Barbie will get a Best Picture nom.
Oh, I have no doubt it'll get a nom.
Yeah, no,
I don't think it'll win.
Yeah,
No,
I don't
no.
think it'll win.
It won't
It
win.
better not win.
When a lot of people were talking about Oscar noms, I kind of rolled my eyes at first because I'm like, Barbie's not. But then when you talk about the strikes and not having anything to offer, I was like, well, you know what? It's like I could see it always getting a nom, but not being a serious nom, like because they love to do that. But now that it's like, well, if there's nothing else left on the table, where do you turn to? Especially knowing the Oscars always want to award whoever has the whoever got on their soapbox the most. It's like, oh, and if that's the only soapbox movie they have, it's like, well, Greta Gerwig's been nominated 3 times and hasn't won yet. Why not? Let's Barbie. It is best director, Greta Gerwig.
Oh yeah, no, I see her definitely getting a nom as
Yeah.
well for directing. No
Because
doubt.
she got the 2 directing and then 1 writing is the 3 noms she's had. So
and I think she's going to
Yeah.
get those with this film as
oh
well.
yeah.
I mean, again, just the popularity, and Oppenheimer is in the same boat with the amount of positive buzz that it's gotten.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily agree with the classic
Yeah.
swirls that have been going around about how timeless it is. But I mean, it being a major blockbuster as well as a Nolan film, and it having every bit of the air of chasing Oscar gold, it could be the one Nolan flick so far that pushes it into the category of winning some major awards.
I'm trying to think because I mean honestly, I mean there's the movies that we've really liked this year, but none of them I would really consider Oscar contenders. But then I don't know what else because I mean I know we enjoyed Creed, we enjoyed Dungeons and Dragons, but those aren't like I
No,
would consider
yeah, no.
and we enjoyed Mission Impossible, but then I'm like none of those are really like the even if they were the only thing on the table, the Oscars aren't going to go for those type of movies.
Nope.
So it's like, what do you have left that they're really going to go for other than, I mean, do you start nominating? Like Disney, I'm sure will be just fine. They'll get all the noms for all the crap garbage they've made as far as animation goes.
Well, and I think it's interesting because you've seen, I mean, they've had slight success overseas with Elemental. It's picked up steam over there in terms of, I think it's
That'll
not
get
going to
a-
save it from
that'll
being
get
a flop,
nom. It'll get a nom.
but it'll get a nom for something like Best Animated Film. But things like Haunted Mansion.
Oh, that's not getting nothing.
That'll get nothing.
I
Oh, I
strictly
know.
meant animated, yeah.
But even then, I still think it's interesting to see how many flops they've had consistently, and they've got to be worried over there. I mean, facing the ongoing strike, but also the fact that even before the strike happened, what you've been able to put together has not succeeded. Like, they've got to be in deep creative crisis over there.
Oh, yeah.
There's definitely an identity crisis
flop
going
after
on.
flop, and I mean for Haunted Mansion to premiere at number 3, I sent y'all that article earlier today, which I thought was hilarious. I mean they don't have a ton of movies based off rides, but still, like I said, this movie, it's the lowest grossing movie since the original Haunted Mansion based on a ride. So that's 20 years ago. It released in 2003.
They've only got 2, don't
So-
they? Or
no.
no, 3. Tomorrowland,
Jungle Cruise.
and this, and
Well,
Haunted
and,
Mansion.
and Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh,
there's
yeah,
5 of
yeah,
those
yeah,
but they're
that's
still
true.
all based on the same ride. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm like, there's really not a lot. But still, it's funny to think that it's like, yeah, I mean,
Nobody wants to see Haunted Mansion.
I
Obviously.
would. I honestly, that's what I think is terrible. Not this one. I'm just saying,
A good one?
Haunted Mansion is the only ride they have outside of Pirates that I think there's enough mythos and lore built around the ride that you could make a movie that would make sense and be really good, but they haven't done it. I think Jungle Cruise was pretty decent.
Yeah,
for what
it was all right.
But
It
I think
wasn't that
it's
bad.
just funny because it's like you're trying to turn these rides into movies because Pirates was such a huge success. But when you look at the Pirates franchise, you ran that into the ground too. So, I mean, they really have, I don't know, they've ran everything into the ground at this point.
yeah.
and the strike's not helping.
No.
I mean it's obviously that, along with them being at odds with Iger and him not talking on their behalf. They, of course, it's like he's got 2 wars on both fronts. He's got a failing box office numbers. He's got the WGA and the SAG mad at him. So I'm like,
They called him out. Like they said, they're like, these. I mean, I get both sides, but they're saying these executives saying we can't pay you more because we're hemorrhaging money. But then all the money we are making are still going to the executives. So it's like Bob Iger's like, I can't pay you more because we're hemorrhaging money, but I'm going to
still
make
worth
but
this.
I'm going to make
Yeah.
sure I get all my money. So And I mean, I know the argument, like, they do take the bigger risk, but at the same time, I'm like, well, Iger, you haven't done anything good for Disney in a while, so are you really worth all that money that you're getting if your company's still tanking?
Correct. I mean, there is. I think that's the one right now that to me seems to have the biggest problem. I mean, there are some other ones that are going to be affected, I think, very soon. I think it was just reported how badly Peacock is doing in terms of just major losses year over year in terms of revenue.
I'm just
just with their streaming service.
You don't ever hear about Peacock. I'm
Disney's
like,
streaming service lost
4 million subscribers.
Lost subscribers.
4
and
more subscribers.
And that's with the Secret Invasion and the prospect of Loki season 2 coming.
That's right.
because nobody cares. I mean, you can only oversaturate with all this garbage based on Marvel. It's because that's really all Disney Plus has had is Marvel and Star Wars.
Yeah.
And they ran that into the ground. That it's like, okay, well, what do you have to offer? Because we're not even interested in Marvel or Star Wars anymore.
No, agreed. I mean, you've literally, you've wrung those properties dry. I mean, you've wrung them out to the point where it's just like there's nothing left, or that even just normal people want to casually watch.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm a huge Muppets fan. I mentioned I only watched the first episode. It was decent, for what it was, I was like, okay, it was decent, and there wasn't anything woke in the first episode. But as big a Muppet fan as I am, it wasn't interesting enough for I haven't watched the rest of it because I was like, oh, this is okay, and I thought I would continue on, but I haven't cared because it's like Muppets Light and Star Wars Light, Pixar Light. Everything is like an imitation of what it used to be.
Right.
And I'm like, you're just making content to make content. It actually it doesn't have the same soul that these IPs had before Disney wrung them dry.
Sean brought up Secret Invasion, and it's interesting because it's like the director of it pretty much just came out and stated, I didn't know anything about the comic books, and I was told I didn't need to by Kevin Feige.
Yeah,
I didn't need to know the storyline in the comics. I just made it up.
People working on it were like, we didn't know anything about we only saw, one person said they only saw Black Panther and one other movie, and that was all they had seen.
That's all you need to see.
And they had to be
Black Panther.
And
if you're of their mindset, it's if you saw Black Panther,
I think it was Spider-Man, Black Panther and Spider-Man, and not even all the Spider-Mans, just one of them.
Yeah,
and it was and then they had to be brought up to speed on everything else. And I'm like, look, if these people are in charge of making what's supposed to be this huge cohesive universe, maybe they should actually know the universe that they're dabbling in.
Well, that was what they were prodded on.
Yeah.
Up through Endgame.
Yeah.
And it was like they just completely changed into this mindset of, we can
the Russos
milk
read
this.
the comic books.
Oh, yeah.
They knew what they were doing.
Well, I actually thought about this the other day, and I was like, Joss Whedon was on as a advisor through the first 2 phases to make sure everything connected, and then when he bowed out, he didn't want to do the Avengers 3, he was like, okay, he did Age of Ultron, and he was like, there's nothing new I can really do with this. I don't think I can do it justice. I'm gonna bow out. So then after that, phase 3, which was still decently done, but that's where, like you mentioned, that's where you start to see the chinks in the armor, is phase 3 when there's no longer that person making the connective tissue except for Feige, and you start getting the first Doctor Strange was mediocre. Black Panther was a phenomenon, but the movie's really not. It's not Oscar worthy like they acted.
No.
Captain Marvel was not really. I mean, in Phase 3, you have Civil War and Ragnarok are the 2 standouts outside of Infinity War and Endgame, because even Guardians 2 was not bad in my opinion, but it wasn't as good as the first. So I'm like, maybe you really needed that person like Whedon was in the first 2 phases, as much crap as they give him for how he's a horrible person now for whatever reason. It's like, but at least everything made sense when you had that one guy being like, oh no, in this movie I'm doing this, so you need to change that. Because they don't communicate anymore. Every production has admitted, WandaVision with and Multiverse of Madness, they admitted, we never talked to each other while we were making this. It's like, isn't that a problem if it's supposed to be connected that you're not communicating?
Well, and I think it also proves to be that they've gotten so massive and big they can't connect it, or that they haven't.
Well, when you have 5 productions going on at the same time,
they haven't taken that initiative because there's no way for them to cohesively connect it all together. Because how can you get that much content?
Well, even like Sean said with the Russos, they brought James Gunn in for Infinity War and Endgame to collaborate with the scenes that involved the Guardians, just so they made sure that made sense and that the Guardians behaved the way they were supposed to behave, because the Russos knew that's not their style of writing. So bring in Gunn to make sure those scenes all fit with that tone.
Basically, all this to say that there's nothing to look forward to.
There's nothing.
It's
dude. Hollywood's
Barbenheimer was it.
Barbenheimer blew up the box office.
Yeah.
Nothing else to look forward to this year. It's over. No, actually, I don't know what we're going to review next week. I think I guess it
Meg
may
or
be the
Turtles.
Meg or Turtles. It's
I would.
Up to you
I'm
all.
up to seeing either one. I mean, I'm not. I'd rather see Meg because I'm actually excited for that one. But I love Ninja Turtles enough that I'm curious about.
I'm gonna
the movie.
have to see that because of my kids. So
Well,
I'm gonna have to take them.
I love that property. Like
Yeah.
I am curious to see what they do with it. I just don't trust it. Whereas the Meg, at least I know I'll have fun, whether
Yeah.
it's a stupid movie or not.
Yeah.
Agreed. One last note in the headlines. A sad one. Took us this long. We probably should have mentioned it right at the top of the show.
No.
Dear Paul Rubens of Pee Wee Herman fame passed away yesterday at the age of 70 after a 6-year-long battle with cancer. And he mentioned in a posthumous Instagram post that he, apologized for not having let anybody know of his struggle in his private life with cancer. And, he thanked all the love from all the fans. And
It keeps
and
I'm like,
it's
I'm
giving
not,
way.
it keeps going down, and every time it does, I'm not doing it on purpose. It's
You
just-
gotta, I've done it before, and this chair does
sometimes,
it too.
if I let it go back up, then sometimes it doesn't do it again. But I'm just
you got to readjust it all the way.
I don't
up.
mean to be disrespectful to Paul Rubin because
He's probably doing it on purpose.
someone
Did I do that?
someone made
That was not Paul Rubens.
some type of joke, and it was I don't remember what it was, but it was not.
It was Urkel. That was Urkel.
But somebody
I
on
just
Twitter
defended him more than anything.
made a joke, and someone got mad, and they're like, "I don't think that's funny." He's like, "I'm pretty sure a comic would laugh at it, so it's fine." He was like, Paul Rubens would be laughing because he was a so
I know what it is. It's like I know you are, but what am I? I know you are, but what am I?
I know Dave Landau. Dave Landau tweeted, "When you get to heaven, tell him Large Marge sent you."
Yeah, that was great. That was fantastic.
Yes.
That was so good.
Yeah.
He did have a little bit of a checkered past.
Yeah.
He first Pee Wee Herman was kind of an adult performance anyway for nightclubs or comedy shows.
They were like
early
theatrical
on.
performances. Yeah.
And then after they changed it and morphed it into a kids show, and there was Tim Burton's first film with Pee Wee's Big Adventure.
Yeah.
And that kind of gave him his start. He had a great, kind, thoughtful words for and sentiment towards Paul Rubens. But then also he went on to do Pee Wee's Playhouse up to the early 90s, and then he was caught of indecent exposure and
Playing with his Pee Wee.
playing with his Pee Wee.
He was in a XXX theater, so I'm sure more than he's
I mean, that's what you do when you're there.
I'm just
right?
saying he was just famous.
thought so.
That's what I'm saying. I think he was just famous enough that they could make a headline out of it. Because any other random guy, they'd just be like, "Oh, get out of the
I ain't gonna lie, his mugshot of that instance straight up is like, dude, that's a guy in a freaking van trying to get your kid to come over.
Have you ever seen Blow? He's in that as a drug dealer, and it's like that's what he looked like in his mugshot.
Yeah. Well, and then there was an instance of, I know he got out of it. It was back in 2004. More controversy about potential child pornography.
Yes, I remember that too.
And he ended up pleading guilty to another misdemeanor charge. I don't know. I haven't researched that case. I know that obviously that's not what you focus on in terms of, the end of somebody's life and the more good that they have contributed to the world. Obviously, I'm not making light of those allegations, but he wasn't convicted on them. Again, I won't let up on someone like Alec Baldwin, who should have been convicted and has been completely let off.
We
or
know,
Kevin Spacey, who was acquitted. And
we know the facts of that,
sense.
whereas with Paul Rubin, it's like we don't know anything other than he was not convicted and, innocent until proven guilty. So
I just imagine him in that XXX theater just going...
He played other great roles though, because me and Miranda were talking about the other, like we were going back and forth, and we're like movies that he was in that wasn't Pee Wee, like he was the FBI.
He was in Cheech and Chong. He was in one of those movies.
Cheech and Chong's next movie, he was in that. He was the FBI agent in Matilda. He was the animal control guy in Dunstan Checks In. I used to love that. I loved that movie growing. When we mentioned that, it's like, man, I need to download and watch that
every
now,
time I saw
it's been
Paul
forever.
Rubens play someone other than Pee Wee and act in a different way, I was like, that's not the same guy.
Yeah.
I was like, I knew
sometimes
him
you don't
as
even
Pee-wee.
notice it.
He was
You
Penguin's
get
dad
half-
in
Yes,
Batman
you get halfway
yeah.
through the movie and you're like, is that freaking Pee Wee Herman?
Yeah, exactly,
It's
exactly.
like, yeah.
What was really cool about that is he played Penguin's dad in Batman
Mm-hmm.
Returns, but then when they made the Gotham series, they actually brought him in as Penguin's dad in that show, and I thought that was kind of cool.
That is cool.
Yeah.
But
Never
no,
seen
it was definitely a tough loss and one that was completely unexpected. Obviously, no one knew he was suffering with cancer, and he lost his battle with it yesterday. So definitely prayers and love to the Rubens family. And obviously, we've got many wonderful pieces of art to remember him by. And I will say it's like the last movie I saw him in, it was his last project was Pee-wee's Big Holiday.
Oh, that was
and
great.
that movie was
Yeah.
that scene at the very beginning with the alien. It hooked me from the get go. I was like, this is hilarious.
It was well done. Yes, it was hilarious, and it was a much better sequel than Big Top Pee-wee. So
Yeah.
Oh yeah, true. Very
What's really
true.
funny is if you go back and watch Pee Wee's Playhouse, you'll see Lawrence Fishburne.
Oh, yeah.
You'll
Yeah.
see so
Cowboy
many.
Curtis.
Yeah, you'll see so many like famous people
they got their start.
that got
yeah.
their start on that show.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
to me,
crazy.
when I see that, it's like a variety show of before. Like, I'm trying to think of what I like in it too. For some reason, the one that popped into my head was like Blue's Clues, which doesn't have like famous people.
That doesn't compare to
No, it
Pee-wee's
doesn't.
Playhouse.
It doesn't.
Sesame
but it's like
Street, like
Sesame
every now and
Street,
then
yeah.
they'd have a
famous person
person come on there, and yeah.
Yep. But it's like that to me. That's the one that I think of originally as
Yeah.
like that kind of brought other stars out of it that you would not have expected to have gotten their start there and rise
Yeah.
to fame. But no, I mean, yeah, leaves behind an
I
incredible
used to love
legacy.
Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Oh yeah.
Mom
Alrighty.
hated it, which I mean, it was weird, bizarre.
It is.
so
It's
it
a
is
weird
bizarre.
show. It's super bizarre. It's like
I tried
seeing-
to bring it up and show my kids.
Oh,
yeah?
I was like, you'll think this is hilarious. My sons looked at me
hated it.
like I had shown them the most disturbing thing they'd ever seen.
I mean, it might be.
Like it wasn't. They weren't funny at all. They didn't think it was funny at all.
like,
It was
what
just yeah.
is- well, that's the
Did you
weird
show
thing. is-
Pee-wee's Big Adventure or
Creeped them.
Pee-wee's Playhouse?
Playhouse.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I remember seeing Pee-wee's Big Adventure first. I never really watched Playhouse.
Oh, I watched the show.
Well,
Me
the
and my dad
movie
watched
did
the
come
show all the
first,
time.
but yeah, I saw
But
both.
yeah, that's the one
Well,
I
I've seen
just
them
know
all,
him
yeah.
by. But it is interesting because I'm like, I see stuff from today that is geared towards kids, and I'm like, what is this garbage?
Yeah.
Like, it's just straight crap. Like, no creativity
Are
at
you
all.
sure? I thought we could have swore the show came before
No,
Pee-wee's Big
it
Adventure.
It was Pee-wee's Big Adventure launched the show that later followed.
I mean, and the show was a kid version of the adult show he used to do in
Hmm.
like for theater performance or whatever, for the club thing that he did. But yeah, it was. That's what made it. Them go to the child. I think the child route was because the movie did so well.
but
I didn't know that.
alrighty, guys, we're gonna move on to our relationship segment. So let's roll that open.
Let me tell you about the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees and the moon up above and a thing called love.
He's getting ready.
I had to go to the.
Gosh,
Well, it's relationships. I definitely have to play it on relationships.
of course.
It's like,
yeah.
oh, love,
Well,
He's
what we're
such a good
talking
actor,
about,
man.
kids are probably going to be saying that next week when
no.
they, and even this week when they return to school. And
Oh.
that's kind of what our relationship segment's about. Who were you excited to see your first day back to school?
I don't know.
It depends on what.
Whether
year.
it was teachers, whether it was friends from the previous year, elementary,
See, I've seen
middle,
my
high
friends
school,
I would see throughout summer as well, so it wasn't so much that like,
all the time.
yeah, not every day, but I mean, just
See, like elementary school, I didn't have that. I didn't go travel. Like most of the kids that went to my school weren't in my neighborhood.
my best friend in elementary school, like at the school, like out of you because we didn't go to the same school. But
It's
like,
okay, you have others.
My friend in school, I stayed over a few times during the summer, not a lot.
What? You
Yeah,
cheated on me?
did.
Yeah.
Cheated on you.
I'm just hearing about this now.
It's like that
Yeah.
night that his parents said you couldn't stay the night.
Yeah,
He was-
Because he was with someone else.
He was with another
yeah.
man?
with another boy.
Another boy.
Oh, my God. You Pee-wee Herman.
And I would say I don't really remember looking forward to anyone in elementary school. Like I don't like remember like those type of specifics. the earliest I probably would remember would be high school if I was looking forward to somebody. And I don't know. Like school wasn't really my thing. Like I know people like that. Obviously, they peaked in high school, and that was like their greatest moment ever. But I'm just like, it's not that like I hated school or I hated my friends there, because I loved hanging out with like you and Nathan and Jacob came a little bit later on as far as that goes. But I'm like, I don't know. Like I was like, I didn't hate it. I guess I was just indifferent towards it. I was like, yeah, it's a thing I have to do, so I go and I enjoy the aspects I enjoy, and then I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't look forward to any school at all. I mean, if there was one person, I remember one summer when I knew that the next year I was going to have the same teacher again, and I did look forward to.
Did you have a crush on her?
No, it was a him.
Oh.
He was my history teacher,
Did you
and
have
I
a crush on
loved
him?
history. But now I can't remember the dude's name. Honestly,
Wow.
He actually, it was his high school. He wanted me. He was going to retire my senior year, and his retirement plan was to buy horses and actually get into horse racing.
Oh, wow.
And like so he was very interested in me because of my size.
He wanted you to be a
And
jockey.
he said you could be a jockey. Have you ever thought about being
you
a
were
jockey?
short?
And I was like, I'm not that short.
You're not.
And I wasn't that lightweight either back then.
Yeah.
But it was funny because in history, in our U.S. history class, like he literally measured me, and he was like, "You're about 2 inches too tall to be a jockey."
I thought,
And-
jockeys were much shorter than
Like
you.
4 foot.
and he was like, it's there was like the maximum height or whatever, and he was like, yeah, that it wouldn't work out, but he was just like, you have the frame for it. I was like 118 pounds back then.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, he was like, you have the frame for it and the height. I think have you ever thought about being a jockey? And he was dead serious. I thought he was joking with
Yeah.
me. The dude was dead serious.
4'10".
Is it
Yeah.
4'10"?
It says most jockeys, they tend to be between 4'10" and 4'6". So
What's
yeah,
their
you were
weight?
just a little.
Well, dude, I'm 5'4", so
Yeah.
I was way over.
Yeah. Well.
My mom's 4'11", so she might have.
She could have done it.
She could have hunched and been
yeah.
a jockey.
She might have been able to.
Well, it says most tend to be between 4'10" and 5'6". So but the 5'6"
Oh,
is
well,
kind
there-
of a higher end.
there you go.
It says, but
2
they
inches short.
They
for-
should not weigh more than 119 pounds.
I was
so-
that. I was like 100 and.
You were
Wow.
close.
Yeah.
You were just a
So
little too
close.
tall.
He
Just a
saw
little too tall.
potential.
Yeah.
He saw
That's
another
what he
Derby
wanted me
winner
to do.
right there.
Yeah.
But I mean, was it after that that you were
4'10" is
just
a short
Nah,
dude.
I
It
was
is
like
a short man.
Yeah, I chalked it up as a joke and all this stuff, and the dude literally wrote in my yearbook. Like I had him sign my yearbook, and he wrote in there
You should have been a
about being a
jockey.
jockey or something like that.
Just get on that horse.
Just funny.
I mean, actually, I should have maybe phrased the question that way. With on the eve of going back to school for so many, I mean, we're long past those days, but maybe the people you would have missed on your last day of school, because there were definitely those moments of signing people's yearbooks.
Yeah, there's definitely
and-
people I made sure, even like you said, teachers like Mr. Hensley. I love Mr.
Oh,
Hensley,
yeah,
the physics
yeah.
teacher at Butler. He was great. Mr. Bolden was always a great guy.
I love Mr. Bolden.
So yeah, there's definitely people that I miss, and that I guess, I mean, if I thought about it at the time, I'm sure like I probably did look forward to messing with like stopping by his room and messing with him, because me and him used to joke, and so things like that, and then just people that you see. I'm sure whatever crush I had at the time, I was definitely always looking forward
Yep.
to those.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
it's like
I
I'm going to get
definitely-
to see
man.
her in the hallway today.
Yeah. Oh, that was always it for me. It was always who am I? It was like 6th grade year.
Yeah.
I didn't know
Which
anybody.
one am I going to fantasize about
Yeah.
this year?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
but like I
That
remember Jordan
pay any
Hibbs
attention
was
to you.
7th grade. Or no, she was 8th grade. Megan Sumter. I had a huge crush on Megan Sumter. Oh yeah.
He's going to go through and name all his
See, all the
crushes.
ones I
I
had a
don't
crush
care.
on,
They're all
they
married
didn't
and
know
have
I
kids
existed.
now.
You know, I had a crush from afar. None of them knew
They
I
didn't-
existed.
A couple. There
Some of them
were a
knew.
lot that didn't, but yeah, there were definitely some that did. So
And none that
They were always
knew
nice
from
about it.
outward, like, oh, I told them. One, I did tell, and yeah, Jordan, she turned me down
Oh,
pretty
wow.
hard, which is
Yeah.
fine. But it is funny because, like, then the ones who didn't,
I told
they
her
get
I
kinda
love her, and
sense-
she said no. That wasn't about her, but that's my favorite Brandon quote.
that happened in college.
Yeah. He said, I told her I loved her, and she said no. I was like, that's the saddest story I've ever heard.
I mean, I was just trying to be brief with the story, and that was the best way around it.
She just said no.
It's it. Done.
It's like, I love you. No.
But no, I mean, absolutely. And then there were crushes that I left behind in elementary school, you know?
I
and
left
it's
him
like,
behind, man.
it's like I was a player in elementary. I knew how to turn on the charm. It just didn't work when I got older.
Yeah.
That's why I'm still single. It happens. You know, sometimes the old tricks, you know, it don't work. Magic's gone.
My always was hindsight. Like at the time, like I couldn't tell someone was into me, and then like years later, I'll be like, son of a gun, like that person liked me.
Right.
I was like, I'm such an idiot.
Well, actually, and that was the weird thing about high school in terms of like looking for, definitely not freshman year.
Yeah.
It was more nerves than anything of like, okay. But it was weird how early on, I feel like in high school, I think my sister and my brother helped me out with this quite a bit. Mm-hmm. They helped me find that footing of like being comfortable, you know, in my own skin and not trying to be someone else.
Yeah.
And I will say, like, I was definitely, my faith guided me quite a bit early on. I was a little bit more of a holy roller, legalistic, like, but it helped me be stern enough and also use that as like an angle to not be afraid to approach people and kind of like wear that on my sleeve of like, hey, take it or leave it. That's who I am. And it actually helped warm me up to a lot of people that I don't think I would have gotten to know and I would have been shy around. And thankfully, I think after my freshman year, definitely sophomore, junior, senior year, it was just kind of growing a friend group of getting to know and see people. And honestly, it was weird. But even in high school, like, I mean, my parents were adamant that even when I turned 16 my junior year, I was not getting a car and driving to school. So I bummed right off Keith and Bridget and Brittany. So they helped drive me. But no, it is interesting because, yeah, it's like there were people that I knew I didn't communicate. I mean, social media was not a thing back then. No. So I didn't see them, did not hear from anybody until
AIM.
Except for, AIM.
Instant messenger.
But people you called and literally, you legitimately hung out with day in and day out. And most of that was Logan and his neighborhood. And so there were people that it was like, I haven't talked to you for like 3 months. Because also back then we got like 3 months off. Now you get like 2 because they go way late and then they start really early. But yeah, I mean, I remember there were tons of times
they
where
still don't teach them anything.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, test scores are down. And they were down back then. But no, it is interesting because it's like I do remember being kind of excited about like, oh, I'm going to get to see this person and I haven't seen him in a while. And there was, as you got older and your hormones are flowing, you're kind of like, I want to see some changes of like how some peeps look and do they look different? Do I look different? You know, am I thinner and I look good?
Best thing about MySpace and then Facebook is that once that came around, you got to see all the summer pictures and you're a guy in high school and all the girls are showing their beach pictures. You're just like, yeah.
Actually, okay. Funny story. Yeah. I know she doesn't watch this, but even if she did, I wouldn't care. It was when I first got on MySpace, and I was like, actually, it was over the course of Christmas break when I got on MySpace because I remember we were doing New Year's at your house.
Because you said you weren't actually supposed to have
I wasn't
right?
supposed to. I was doing it incognito.
Oh,
parents
man.
didn't know.
Yeah. Well, they might know now.
I got a friend request from, name at the time was Emily Harris. She's now, I think, Emily Hernandez. I think that's who that. And she sent a friend request to me on MySpace. And of course, I'm already like, okay, I got to keep this secret because my parents don't know.
Yeah.
Well, she had like a full on, it was kind of a dimly lit room, but it was like a picture of her in like a bikini. And it wasn't like anything posed weird or provocatively. It was just her taking a picture in like a mirror. And I just remember seeing it, and I was like, I don't know who that is. And I just didn't. I declined their friend request.
He panicked. He's like, girl in a bikini. He panicked.
I was like, some girl in a bikini trying to send me. My
I don't think we
parents
have
can't
the
see
opposite because I see that, and I'm just like, accept. No.
You're like, who's this? And honestly, that would have been before clickbait. Like, that would have been like, oh, this has got to be legitimate. Like, no girl's just trying to hook up with me on MySpace. But no, I declined it, and I was like, I don't want that scene on there.
Did she call you out on it later?
Well, I got to school after New Year's, and I came back, and I was talking to a few people about, like, yeah, I finally got one. Like, send me your friend request. She was like, I tried. And I was like, what do you mean? She was like,
well, you just ruined your shot there, didn't you?
Yeah.
Well, she straight up sent me another one, and I accepted. I was like, I didn't know that was you. I was like, you're in a bikini. And she was like, so? And I'm like, okay. No, I owe her too much money from bumming like quarters to get Little Debbie's down at Miss Is it Miss Nord's?
I always held out
or
for the
Mr.
Otis
Nord's or-
Spunkmeyer cookies.
Yeah, but there was
Those were
somebody
the
who somebody sold Little Debbie's right down the hall after lunch.
I don't know. I didn't buy those.
And we were in Miss Curry's class in 4th period, and I would always bum 50 cents off of her to go get a fudge round.
What was it? I think Mr.
I owe Emily
Stribling,
like
who cooked the cook. I think.
yeah. He cooked them outside in the computer.
Yes,
and brought
he had-
them in. Oh yeah,
and they would go around the take cookie orders, and those things were amazing because they were always hot and fresh since he made them right there.
Oh,
And I
it
was
was
like,
so
yeah.
good. Yeah, I owe her probably at least $2,000 in Little Debbie
quarters.
bills.
I remember when Micah and Courtney used to bring in the brownies and the cookies, and they sold them in class. And yeah, those were good.
Well,
too.
they had to stop because they were just starting to get like distracted. People they were distracted.
The school made
everybody.
them stop.
Yeah.
You were being a distraction. I was like, why? Because they're profiting. Like, I mean, good
Yeah.
for them.
And I think he did use
don't know.
it for some kind of like after school program. I don't know if it was like, I don't know. I can't remember what he was into.
Oh yeah,
Like,
you're talking
you
about
use it to
the
funds.
cookies.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it too. They were taking away from the cookie sales. But I'm just like, hey,
It's like
that's
our
competition.
baseball
man.
coach sold cookies to fund the baseball team, but he would cook the cookies or bake the cookies in this. He had 4 or 5 ovens in one of those portable classrooms.
Yeah.
We used to call them pods.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
and
yep,
and
yep,
we
yep.
so his pod that he had was ISAP. So if you were in trouble, you went in that pod and
you
he
smelled
would bake.
all those
he would
cookies?
bake cookies in these 5 ovens,
That's
and it
torture.
was
It
like
is.
110 degrees in there.
Oh, and so it's
No,
burning
it was
up
hot.
too.
It was a freaking pod the size of this room, and there's like 8 or 10 of
And they were
of you
like
in
the
there.
metal pods, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
and,
my gosh.
And he would have the ovens going, and that was part of the
The
that was
punishment.
part of the punishment was you just sweat your balls off out there.
Why you have to smell these cookies?
And then
you're
you
not allowed
smell
to
the
have.
cookies, and you weren't allowed to sleep, and the heat would make you tired. I got ISAP one time, and I
was
was
enough?
in there, and it was like, the heat would make you so like drowsy, and if you put your head down, you were
done.
Oh, he was on you like flies on crap.
Yep.
Like you
ain't gonna
were-
pass out in here.
No. So it was torture, but yeah, then he would sell the cookies, and it was funny. Well, I don't know if I should say it.
Just go.
He had all the handicapped kids sell the cookies for him because you wouldn't say no to a retarded kid. I mean, I'm sorry. You wouldn't say no to a kid in a wheelchair.
It's good. It's genius marketing.
Yeah, so
I give it to him.
he would have the special needs kids sell the cookies, and of course, if a kid rolls up to you and is like, "Buy a cookie," then you would say yes, and you'd buy 3 of them.
Yeah. You'd be
Yeah.
like, man, dude, yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely.
That's when you do
Oh,
like
yeah.
so that's
that
what he would
money
do.
swapping scam on
Yeah.
them. It's like, well, here, I'll give you this 20, and if you break it and give me
Yeah,
back
dude.
5 100s.
Coach Miller was a genius when it came to that.
Yeah.
I mean, he
Absolute
obviously he
genius.
knew how to raise money. I mean,
He
did
did.
y'all have
Well,
a
that's
good
what the baseball team. Oh yeah, we had.
But
Yeah.
then boom, it worked.
Yeah.
That's all that mattered.
Yep. He got the money.
That's right. All right. That fits. That fits.
Yeah.
You actually reminded me when you're talking about ISAP, but that needs to be a story time segment.
Yeah,
Is when we got in trouble in school. We need
Yeah.
to do that one.
Yeah.
And we're gonna just
I
school
almost
theme
I got in
we
trouble a
almost
lot at school.
talked about that,
That's
but then I was
yeah.
like, nah, that's a whole nother
ones. It
conversation.
is. We need
Yeah.
to bring that one
Yeah.
up though.
No.
We need to
Yeah,
bring
If
that
I
up.
was in
stories on
elementary
that one.
school
Bookmark it.
right now, I'd be in prison because I grabbed so many girls' butts when I was in elementary school.
wow.
Oh, dude,
I would be in jail right now. If I was in.
that's another story. I ain't gonna
Yeah,
go down
back
that
then
road.
it was stop doing that, Sebastian.
I grabbed the butts at church camp, okay, or at church in general.
I
That was
kind of
where
feel like
grabbed the
that's. I kind of feel like that's expected.
butts. Yeah, but I mean, it's not good.
Girls went crazy at church camp.
Oh, yeah, they did.
I've heard way too many stories about girls at church
A
camp.
lot of good things can happen at church camp.
A lot of not good
Yeah.
things can happen at
That's
that
true
camp,
too.
so.
Yeah, that's very true too.
Yeah.
We'll just do church camp
We do-
stories.
Oh gosh,
You're saying
right.
I've seen nudity and it wasn't the nudity I wanted to see.
that's true. And I know what you're talking about. too.
Hairy monster. All right, they're gonna leave it at that.
All right.
Thank you all so much for tuning in. We appreciate all the love, the sharing, and
I don't know what he's gonna say.
I don't know what I was saying.
church camp.
trying to do so much here. But no, we appreciate all the love. Please like, share, subscribe. All the social media icons at the bottom of the screen. Red Moon Book on Facebook. Red Moon Tweet on X. I need to change our little icon. It's X now.
Red Moon X. Yeah.
Red Moon Pics on Instagram, and of course Red Moon Productions on YouTube and Rumble. We appreciate all the love and the support there as well. Like, share, subscribe. And, of course, that old-fashioned way of reaching out to us, that email address that Keith can rattle right off his tongue. It's beautiful. Silver-tongued devil.
RMPodcast at redmoonproductions.com.
That's just beautiful every time I hear it.
Silver-tongued
He just went Muslim.
Nobody
all of a
knows
sudden.
what's going on.
It sounded like the Muslim characters in Team America.
Yeah.
He's like, Durka, Durka, Muhammad. I love it. Durka, Durka, Jihad. It's just like, okay.
Wow.
Muhammad.
Yeah.
What's that? Well, yeah, the dance. Muhammad, Jihad, Jihad. Terrible movie. Great. I love it.
Alrighty, guys, that's going to do it for this episode. Again, we're going to decide whether or not we're seeing the Meg 2 or Ninja Turtles. We'll let y'all know. We'll blast that out. But thank y'all so much for tuning in. Until next week on Tuesday at 9, we're live. I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside your normal new host,
Vanilla Steam.
and
Durka, Durka, Jihad.
Oh, God.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. For more reviews, previous podcast shows, and everything Red Moon, visit our website, redmoonproductions.com. You can also like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for Red Moon Productions, LLC. We'll see you at the movies.